A string of recent air traffic control incidents have travelers on edge. Just yesterday, the FAA confirmed that pilots flying into the Denver airport lost contact with air traffic control for almost 2 minutes. And pilots have experienced similar issues when landing at Newark Airport as well. Sources tell NBC News that air traffic control in Newark has lost contact with pilots several times. On top of that, Newark Air Traffic Control is facing a dire staffing crisis, and they're not the only ones. A New York Times analysis shows that 99% of the air traffic control facilities in the U.S. are operating below recommended staffing levels. For more, I want to bring in a former acting FAA administrator. His name is Billy Nolen, and he joins us now. Mr. Nolen, how can the FAA solve air traffic control staffing crisis? And when you have incidents like this where they lose control with the planes, this seems to add another layer of difficulty and stress onto a job that probably is one of the most stressful that anyone could have.
Yeah, well, Michelle, first, thank you for having me on tonight. Bottom line up front is that while our nation's airspace system is safe, our air traffic control system is safe, it's starting to show some signs there. You're starting to see a little bit of cracks. I don't recall during my time as acting FAA administrator that we sort of had outages around the system. There were some things that we were seeing, and so I really do commend Secretary Duffy for a couple of things. Number one, bringing the industry together, and for the first time, and I've been a pilot for 45 years, for the first time in my career, having this kind of just unanimous support around fixing and investing, investing is a much better word, our air transportation system, and to your point, giving the flying public that sense of comfort that they need and that they deserve. That, number one, that the system is safe, and number two, that the investments are there to make sure that it keeps pace as our nation airspace grows. We're operating 45 to 50,000 flights a day. We've got 1 million drones operating in the NAS. We've got new entrants like eVTOLs, flying taxis, whatever you're going to call them, are all coming in. So really, this is a time for us to just stop and reflect on what we need to do to make sure that our system can keep pace.
Stop and reflect, and yet, we are still seeing planes taking off from some of the larger airports at, almost 30-second intervals. The Transportation Secretary, Secretary Duffy, just unveiled a plan to modernize air traffic systems. You yourself have called for upgrades for air traffic control for a very long time. When we're talking about an overhaul, what would that take? How much time would it take? Where would the money come from?
Yeah. All of the excellent questions, right? So first and foremost, the FAA can only, like most federal agencies, can only operate on a budget from dollars that are appropriated by Congress, right? There's no, I had no pool of money I can sort of turn to. I could sort of rob Peter to pay Paul, but what you get is what you get. And so those are the choices that you have to make. What I am hearing, what we're all hearing from Secretary Duffy, and again, certainly has my full support, along with Chris Rosso, the acting administrator at the FAA. I'm hearing that somewhere between 15 and maybe $30 billion. We'll see what happens in the coming days. What are the immediate steps? Some of the immediate steps is to begin to address. Now, when we think about the air traffic controller shortage, that's just a longer period of time. It takes about a year to get through the training. It takes another 18 to 36 months to be what we call fully qualified. This says you a certified professional controller, right? So that's not something we're going to sort of, snap our fingers and have, correct overnight. But we can begin the process of, replacing this copper wiring, dealing with communication outages that cause this concern and consternation on behalf of both the controllers and the pilots, right? We can begin the process of, appointing an entity that's going to oversee all of this so that we can, look the American public in the eye and says, we've got your back. We are going to do this, and we're going to do it right. And, I have faith that the secretary is going to get that done.